We are still in investigation 3.3, and this is the second video. In the first video, we talked about completing the table, and now for the second video, we are talking about, we're doing part B, which is on page 54 in variables and patterns. And it asks us to write a rule in words and an equation for calculating three different things. So I'm not going to focus on writing the rule because the main thing is to work on writing the equations. And so if you remember, what you should have in your notes is the format that I gave you for writing an equation. So the format is, we always solve for the dependent variable, and that equals whatever the pattern is times the independent variable plus or minus the starting value when x equals 0. And I know that's a little bit confusing, but hopefully in doing a couple of these, you'll start to see how that kind of works. All right, so part 1 asks, B1. We want to write the equation for revenue R for n customers. So this is for revenue, which is going to equal R, for number of customers, which is going to equal n. All right, so now before I get started, the first thing that I want to do is identify what is what. So what is revenue, what is number of customers? Meaning which one's independent, which one's dependent. So when I look at this situation, does the number of customers determine how much income I make, or does the income I make determine how many customers show up? So as you can see, it's pretty much, it's the first situation. So revenue is my dependent variable, and number of customers is my independent variable. So the number of customers that show up directly affects how much money I make. And if you remember in our last video, we discussed the fact that that revenue is income. Okay, so what this means is our dependent variable is our y-axis, and our independent variable is on the x-axis. All right, so that's the start. Okay, so now let's start trying to write the equation. So dependent is revenue. So revenue equals pattern. We don't know what the pattern is, so we have to find it. So the way we find the pattern is we subtract one from the other, and we say you do it at least 2 times. Okay, so I'm going to pick 2 random spots in the table. So I'll pick that one and that one. Okay, so we're going to do 700 minus 350, and that equals 350. Well, that came out bad. All right, and then we're going to take 1400 minus 1050, and that equals 350. Okay, so once I find a consistent value in the table, I can pretty much say that the pattern is 350. So 350 times my independent variable is number of customers. Oh, come on. Okay, plus if I work the table backwards, when number of customers is 0, so starting value when x equals 0. So when x equals 0, my income is going to be 0, because I would be at 350, and I would need to subtract 350 to work the table backwards instead of what do I add. So I subtract it, I'll get 0. So plus 0. Okay, so we had the beginning of this. Now what they want us to do is they don't want us to keep all the words. So they want us to get rid of the word revenue, replace it with R. So R equals, the 350 stays, and number of customers is N. So 350 N. We don't have to write the plus 0 because anything plus 0 is just whatever it was. So it's just going to be 350 N. Okay, so that's our equation for the first one, for solving for revenue. Now, I hope you guys are getting all this in your notes. So I'm going to get rid of this part. And this part. Okay. And I can't think, you guys. I'm like losing it over here. Okay. B2. If I say okay again, just point to me. I'll know what the heck it means. All right, B2. Total expenses E for N customers. So, I should have erased this. Okay. Oh, I just said it again. Total expenses and number of customers. Okay. Oh! I hope all you all keep turning around going, oh, Mr. Tyler, we got you again and again. All right. Total expenses, they want us to use E. Number of customers is going to be N. So now we're looking at total expenses and number of customers. So we're looking at those two things. So we're comparing those two things and seeing how they affect one another. So, does the number of customers determine my expenses, or does my expenses determine how many customers I take? So it's actually the other way. It's the first way again. So, number of customers is going to be my independent, just like it was last time. So that's my x-axis. And total expenses is dependent, and that's my y-axis. I know I got to find the pattern, so let me see if I can find it. I always like to take the first ones, and I'll be different. I'll take that one. All right. So 390 minus 195. So that's 195. Come on. And 1170 minus 975 equals 195. We have our pattern. Our pattern is 195. So when I write this out, dependent is total expenses my pattern is 195 times number of customers plus, again, if I say number of customers is 0, my expenses will be 0, because when I work this backwards, I subtract 195. So that'll give me 0. so plus 0. And finally, so total expenses is E equals 195 times N. And that's our equation for finding the total expenses. Now the last one says, part 3, profit P for N customers. I want you guys to try to do that one on your own. The only thing, if you remember from the first video, I kind of give you an idea as to how to write the equation, okay? And it really gets into how do you find profit. So what I'm asking you to do is actually to go back to the first video and listen to when I'm talking about profit, because I kind of give you a hint as to how to write the equation. So I'm going to make you guys do a little bit of work for this one. If you took notes on the first video, then you might already have it down. But if not, just listen to it, and that should help you write the equation for profit. And then we'll talk about that tomorrow in class.